All right. I'd like to start off about the point where he talks about the welfare state, you know, that teachings about helping the poor people are actually implemented in the state. Exactly, that's my point, that these teachings are being implemented in modern day societies. So that shows you those teachings are relevant. You know, as I said, if we look at all the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad and Jesus, and those teachings were implemented into an actual state, people would say, you know what, that's a pretty good state. And many states do implement those teachings. And people praise those states as being modern and secular. But those teachings also come from religion. So that shows a high relevance to those teachings. So I believe I established my point on that. And more to say about that point, many of the good teachings that we see implemented in government, many of the morals we have, actually comes from the religious basis. You know, it's often said, and this is not a disputed fact, that when it comes to the West, Western societies have been built on Judeo-Christian values. Concepts such as charity and being kind to your neighbor, these comes from Judeo-Christian values. And what secularists are doing these days is they take these good values from these religions and then they just detach religion from it. And they say, okay, now it's secularism, forget about religion. Basically, in other words, they plagiarize it. They take all the good from it and then they say, now we don't need religion. But the foundation of the state, the foundation of most of your morals actually comes from a religious basis. In fact, just to even make this case even stronger, the first and oldest official code of laws, the first code of laws that we actually have in history, is it a secular or a religious document? It's a religious document. It comes from Sumeria, the Code of Urnanu. Yeah, that's how you say it. The Code of Urnanu. The oldest actual tablet of ethics and laws. Don't murder, don't kidnap, don't steal. And then you also have the Code of Hammurabi, which is a much bigger piece of tablet. And again, moral ethics. So I have a challenge for all secularists. Since secular atheists always ask for evidence, now I want evidence. Bring me a singular secular document of code, of ethics and laws and morality that predates these codes, that comes before these codes of conduct, morality, and ethics. That's what I'd like to bring. And even the American Constitution, which many secularists like talking about. Isn't it interesting? Secularists always talk about the American Constitution, but they never talk about the Declaration of Independence, which is the basis of the Constitution. Americans don't have a holiday, or they don't celebrate the day of the Constitution. They celebrate the day of the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence is the basis of the Constitution. And guess what? The Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, who atheists love to refer to, I don't know why, but the Declaration of Independence, written by these men, refers to God, refers to the Creator. That's the source of those morals. That's the source of their laws, which they then put into the American Constitution. So even that secular document is based on religious ethics. So most of your moral principles and laws comes from religion. In fact, even the First Amendment, many secularists often misinterpret what the First Amendment is all about. The First Amendment, its main priority is to safeguard religious people, because these American forefathers knew of a tyrannical system. Not religion, but a certain form of religion, the church, which used to oppress people who didn't follow their orthodox version of Christianity. So if you weren't a Trinitarian, or if you weren't a Calvinist, you would be punished. So these forefathers, they wanted to safeguard the religious rights of theists. So if you were a Christian who didn't follow orthodoxy, that would be okay. That's the main point of the First Amendment. Not to get rid of religion, but to protect religion, to protect religious values. And if you actually brought many of the modern day arguments that secularists try to use with the First Amendment to those American forefathers, they would be left scratching their heads because they didn't have the intention that many modern day secularists try to bring up with the First Amendment. So the basic point I'm trying to make is most of these ethics, laws of governments are based on religion. And again, the challenge is out there. Bring me a single secular document that predates those Sumerian texts where most of our laws come from. Now, as for the point, Jesus was an apocalyptic, so most of his moral teachings were because he believed the end of the world was coming. That is one academic view, but there are other academic views that dispute that, and that's another topic for another debate. I don't think he was an apocalyptist. I don't think he thought the world was coming to an end. Indeed, there were some Christians who thought it was going to come to an end, but I believe they were wrong. And then the point about science. Science does help a lot. For instance, a doctor is better than prayers. You know, some people just pray over a person. Well, religion doesn't really teach that you shouldn't go to a doctor or science. So that's a straw man. And he said the source of reality comes from secularism. I think I addressed that. The source of reality comes from religious ethics. That's why most laws are based on the religious teachings. Now, a point he brought up was that religion or Islam may have been tolerant in its minority phase, but then when they become a majority, they become less tolerant. Now, that might be a good argument, but history says otherwise, because you still have Christian communities. Some of the oldest Christian communities are still present in the Muslim world. And we actually have historical documents, we have historical witnesses from non-Muslims, we have non-Muslim academics and historians who openly speak about the tolerance of the Islamic State to its minorities. So Islam has a history of being tolerant to its minorities. And then a point about women's rights and gay rights. Now, I don't think secularists have a right to talk about women's rights. I mean, secularists are banning women from wearing headscarves, from covering their faces, and in France, you get fined if you cover your face. In France, you can get kicked out of the country if you cover your face. So I think secularists are the last people to talk about women's rights. I mean, if you want, you can't have your cake and eat it. And the point about the Jesus of Revelations was a maniac. Most people don't view the book of Revelations as actual historical facts about Jesus. That's what I would say. Thanks.